All right, good morning everybody. As you already know, my name is Jessie and I'm a graduate student at John F. Kennedy University in the field of sports psychology. Most of you already know a little bit about sports psychology, but just to define it more plainly, it's a pretty newer field in the grand scheme of psychology that attempts to work with athletes and their performance. And they take a special focal look at the performance to see how certain skills can, if an athlete chooses to participate in those skills, increase performance. So that's really key to mention and say, because sometimes we'll see like these superstar athletes or even our friends who go and somehow, you played with them in AAU or played with them in high school, and then they hit college and it's like, well, we have the same talent, the same skill set. Like, what's up with that? Like, why did this person go above and beyond and I'm still like, biologically, talent-wise, we're all the same, but this person went on and I'm still maybe plateauing a little bit. It's because of sometimes the mental component and the mental side. Not everyone works with a mental skills consultant or a sports psychologist, but sometimes people just somehow figure it out on their own, and that marks the difference. So how does that relate to like mental toughness and mental skills? I'm gonna first ask y'all, what do you think mental toughness means specifically? No wrong answers.
Being able to like get through hard situations, I guess. It's very like plain answer, but
Yeah, no, that's good. So hard situations like what kind?
well, like in basketball, like like shooting like a foul shot, like high pressure situations, like 30 seconds or 5 seconds and you're tied and like, oh, I have to make it, my team will win. So like not like being able to just focus and shoot instead of like caving under the pressure.
Exactly. That's exactly it. But yeah, let me hear some more.
Yeah, so like,
See if you can get them too. Sorry. Can you hear them as well?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
like resiliency and like performing demand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So performing on demand, maintaining focus.
I think when you're like physically tired, having that mental aspect to be able to
Exactly.
push through even if you're physically tired.
The discipline to maintain the things you practice and like push through. Did you have anything?
Oh.
No? Okay. Waiting for your coffee. No, all those things are spot on. So literally mental toughness is the ability to like resist, manage, and overcome different things like fear, doubt, circumstances like you said, in-game circumstances, or even sometimes things that happen off the court. We're human beings. We can't help but bring that on the court. So how do you mentally stay in a place where your performance doesn't drop just because life is happening? We can't help life is happening. We're not always happy with coaches. We're not always happy with each other. Sometimes we're not happy with ourselves. And then our performance is on the line because that game is still about to happen and that practice is still at 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock or however late sometimes it is, right? So that's kind of like the field. And it's important for me to just, before we get into anything more and reveal the topic, that we just kind of start from that equal footing, because really it's about a choice. What separates athletes like from your peers, like if you could think about someone who's kind of similar to you and why this person might be getting more play or more shine, it's because they've chosen to be mentally tough, whether they were taught it or not. It's their ability to choose skills that don't affect their performance. And that's really what separates people. It's not always necessarily the talent or the biologics that goes into it. So with that, the skill we're going to talk about today is communication. All of you guys have heard about communication before, so it's not like I'm going to be presenting anything new, but hopefully I can spin it and share it in a way that feels new, so that when we're all said and done and after we've played our activity, it feels like something that is like a tool, more empowering in a different way than you guys have heard it before. Instead of someone saying, just communicate and you'll get it right, and just communicate and you'll get it right. It's kind of like, well, practically, how can I truly communicate and it really help my performance? Everyone on the same page? Anyone have any questions? Okay, cool. So what is communication? More participation. No wrong answers either.
Conveying a message to someone else.
Yeah. How would you convey that message? What are some ways that message can be conveyed?
Like verbally or non-verbally.
Excellent. That's exactly what I'm going to get into. only a step before that, there's intrapersonal communication and interpersonal communication. So we're not going to get into intrapersonal communication, but if someone can help me flush that out real quick in a sentence, what do you think that is?
How you communicate with yourself.
Yes, exactly. So how you talk to yourself. Dang it, you know, the game is tied. I'm on the free throw line. We got like 20 seconds left on the clock. If I don't make this thing in, oh my God. You just said all that to yourself instead of saying in the 10 seconds that you have while you're trying to bounce the ball and figure it out, I can do this. Coach T told me how to do this. Coach Bell, Coach Kelsey said this, and then square up and actually make it in. That's a very different conversation, right? So that's the mental toughness piece that I'm talking about. Everyone goes to the same practice at the same time, but what will separate someone is sometimes that intrapersonal communication, because it'll align you in a different way. But what we're going to talk about today is interpersonal communication. And sometimes interpersonal communication, which, who can help me flush that definition out? If it's exactly how y'all interact with each other. And this is the part that's kind of like, I was thinking about, like, what am I going to talk to them about? What am I going to talk to them about? And I was like, you know what? There's different things that we could have talked about, like team cohesion and this and that and the third. But if you're building a house, you need a good foundation. And sometimes a good foundation is just, if I look at you, am I looking at you for who you really are? If I look at you, am I looking at, am I talking to you for who you really are? And when you talk to me, am I active listening? Am I really taking in that information? Am I interpersonally communicating in such a way that makes people feel like they're being heard and, that I'm being listened to? So that's exactly what we're going to go through today. Under interpersonal communication is exactly what Georgia said. It's nonverbal and verbal communication. So I'm going to act out some things, 5 things, and you're just going to tell me how you feel about it. Under nonverbal, because our activity is going to be verbal. So we'll actually live that out together in a second, okay? So under nonverbal, there's posture, gestures, body position, touching, and facial expressions. And there's nothing good or bad about it, but depending on how you do it, it can give a message. Nonverbal communication is how much percent of language? Who knows? Just throw out a percentage.
60, 70, 80.
80?
93.
94.
You know what? There was this fun tangent documentary that we were watching, and people had to guess how many gumballs were in a gumball machine, and all of them were individually wrong. But the crazy part is, if you were to take everyone's answers and divide it by the number of people, it was only off by like maybe 3 gumballs. So I heard 90, 60, all these things, but the answer is 70. So I was thinking in my head, like the median of all that is probably, you guys are spot on, which is cool because that shows how much, individually you can have an answer, but as a group, once you divide it by each other, you're probably going to be spot on. So yes, 70% is nonverbal. So if Jimena's talking to me and I'm all like, what is this? What is this?
Like
Unreceptive.
Yeah.
Exactly, unreceptive, what else?
Like judgy.
Judgy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like no.
Right? It's like weird. But if I'm like, hey Keely, what's up?
What's up?
And then she's talking to me and I'm just like this. My body language is what? Open. Or like if Dougie's having a bad day and so am I, and now she got something to say to me and she's talking to me and I'm like, this one's kind of tricky, but what is this? What is this pose? Arms open.
I'm the bigger person coming at me.
Exactly. It's like dominant. It's like, well, what the heck do you want? Like, if someone's talking like this, it's almost like, oh my God, is that person gonna fight me? Like, what is, what is with this person? What's another one? What if I am talking to Ellie and I'm like,
My face.
weird, right? What? Too much, too close. But if I'm talking to V and she's trying to plan something and I'm all the way back here, everyone's listening, it's kind of like, oh my God, maybe I'm trying to tell her something intimate or personal and she's making me feel like by how far she is, maybe she doesn't care. Maybe she's walking away. Maybe she's trying to finish a thought and I'm like, yeah, I'll catch you tomorrow. you know, nonverbals, you know, how we're looking. And that's super important because we can recall so many things that someone said that might maybe like pissed us off, but then on top of that, our brain on a neuronal level has processed every nonverbal at the same time. And if it matched to maybe their tone, which is the verbal piece that we're going to talk about, and their overall message, then at the end of the day, that doesn't help with the team cohesion. That doesn't help with the interpersonal communication that you might want to have with somebody maybe the next time. Or if you have to see them the next time, it's like awkward now. You gotta be like fake about it, because it's human. Like, that's how I would expect someone to act if the interaction before then, right, is not great and bonding and close. So before we get into the verbal activity, there's 3 things that I wanted to touch on with verbal communication. Now that we understand intrapersonal communication is talking to ourselves, interpersonal communication is how we talk to each other. Under interpersonal communication is verbal versus nonverbal. I already acted out a few nonverbals, right? And now verbal communication is literally diction, what we're saying, vernacular, the words we choose as we're engaging with someone, right? Because I could be open, but if I'm catty, I could be like, yeah, you know, and the things that I'm saying might be like rude, even if I have this open stance. So it all comes together, essentially, and you want these things to match. So I have 3 things that I found important, but what do y'all find important about verbal communication? Like, as a human being, like, how do you want someone to verbally communicate with you?
Tone is important. Yeah.
Tell me why. From your perspective, no wrong answers.
Sometimes, like, somebody's tone is harsh and I kind of get, like, kind of defensive or, like, not as, like, open to what they have to say because I'm kind of too, like, like that. But if somebody's, like, too, or, like, I guess if somebody is, like, soft-spoken, I'm kind of more, like, willing or kind of, like, careful, I guess. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else relate to that or feel differently? Not differently like to argue, but just being your own individual. Like, how do you perceive tone?
Similar, I think it is important, like same thing as Elle, honestly. Yeah. And then, but, like, other than tone, I think I'm not very, like, freedom of speech, but, like, just say, like, try to say, like, nice things, like, I don't know, like, Coach Bell is always, like, try not to curse, and, like, try not, you know what I mean, like, saying, like,
Yes.
I'm not all, I don't know, but just, like, try to speak kindly to others, I think, is important.
Absolutely. And that's what you would hope when someone's speaking to you, right? And so some of the other things, like, I had wrote down is, like, message clarity. So, like, it's really important that, like, you guys come here today and don't leave, like, what the hell was Justine talking about in there for, like, 30 to 45 minutes? You know, like, no, boom, we were talking about communication, she laid it out, she bullet pointed it, the message was clear. Message clarity. So how does that play into, like, the basketball court, like at practice or in a game? How do you make a message clear?
Or
if you wanted to share something else, yeah. No
I
worries.
just wanted to, like, say about tone, I feel like that's, like, the first, like, almost the first impression. So even before you listen to the message, even if you don't listen to the message, it's kind of like, well, if they have a bad tone, you're automatically, you know, guarded. You don't want to listen to them, and maybe you don't listen to them.
Absolutely. And I know I feel that way too. Like, I'm a very big personality, but I'm also a very sensitive person. So if somebody's coming at me sideways, that automatically will shut me down. I don't care whose team I'm on, what company I work for. Like, I'm a human being, and maybe the experiences and the culture and all the things that make up a person, which are super individual, by the time you're in a similar environment, you know, and you have one stimulus or one trigger, that's going to affect each individual differently, just depending on what comes behind them. And so sometimes tone, you know, maybe my tone may not offend you, but maybe my tone offends you. You know what I mean? And so definitely being mindful of trying to find that neutral place, especially when talking about things that could be difficult. You know, if Jimena did something to me that I wasn't really sure, I really appreciate it, and we're teammates, and I know we got to really work together. I might not want to roll up to you and be like, you know, Jimena, I might, you know, it's going to be already awkward, but I want to approach her. I want to be like, you know what, this is already like hard for me to do. Like, but it's just you and me here in the locker room, and you know, we're really working on this thing, and it's annoying. And the last thing I want to do is have another DWBU thing about something. So let me just, you know, do you have a second? Do you feel open right now? Like, check in. Is it okay if I just tell you like how I feel? And then the last thing I wrote down is, you know, start by taking responsibility. So if she did something to me, I might want to say like, you know what, this is how I feel about what you did to me, but I reflected before I came up to you, and I see how I could have said this or joked about this or did this or came across this way. I don't want to assume, but like, is that true? Is that why you responded to me that way? Because I'm just focused on how you responded, because that hurt my feelings. But I want to just leave a little bit of room for the fact that maybe I did something that, based off of your upbringing and your past experiences, maybe I thought I was in the clear, but she's perceiving as something else. You know what I'm saying? So now there's this divide, and then nobody wants to talk about it. But creating those safe spaces. So tone, taking responsibility, and clear messages. You know, I don't want to go up to Jimena in that moment and not have thought about what I want to get out of it. So my message needs to be clear. I need to be mindful of my tone, and then leave room for Jimena to say, I appreciate you coming to me. You know, I apologize for how I hurt you. You know, I did want to say that I was triggered by X thing you said or X thing you did. And by saying leave room, that means you're just preparing your heart and your mind to understand that it's not a tit for tat. It's not like she's going to come back and necessarily, like, the both of you got to be defended. You're mature. You've left room for the fact that she pissed you off, and you might have done the same. And that's it. It's a family, right? So you just leave room for those things, and then you just move on the best way you can. It might be a little awkward for the next day, but then after that, you already know you talked about it, you communicated, you used the best verbal and nonverbal skills that you could. So at that point, you just put it into practice, and it can only get better from there. So that's nonverbal and verbal. Any questions? Awesome. So we're gonna get into this activity on communication, because we're talking heavily about relationships and how communication is a foundation on relationships. When you think about romantic relationships, communication is used even to get to know someone in romantic relationships, brothers and sisters, etc. So we're gonna speed date each other for the activity. Nice. I have these instructions. I already printed out my little index cards, and this is how it's gonna go. In a second, we're gonna move into the kitchen. You're gonna stand a nice distance from each other, because we already talked about nonverbals. So you'll be close enough to be personal, but far enough to be like, okay, I'm getting to know this person. I've chose 6 questions that I thought were neutral. Some of them are kind of funny. Some of them might get a little deep, but truly, this is just us. It's an opportunity to be like, you know what? F it. Like, I'm here. We're working on interpersonal skills, so let's just get into personal. See where this goes. This is different. This is nothing like what we've done before. I'm not a coach, so it's a safe space to just answer the questions how you feel you should answer them. Okay? So I'm gonna give each of you guys a number, and then you're gonna follow me to the kitchen. 1,
2,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That was so easy. All right, everyone stand. And I would like.
All right, who wants to speed date?
I would love to.
Georgia.
So number 1 is gonna go right here. So who's my number 1? Georgia. Number 2 can go right here. 3, and whoever's 4 can be right where Ash is standing. And then the line is key, because I measured it.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Nonverbal.
Behind the lines.
I measured it. So 5 is here. 6, 7, and 8.
The line, guys.
My personal space.
I know, I didn't follow you.
Don't look at the questions yet. Don't look at the questions yet. There's 6 of them there. So this is how it's gonna go. I need a whistle, but
Whistle. Wow. We're
Lines.
really moving.
but that's okay. We're gonna do the baton, and when you hear this, That's when we know to move. I was supposed to get my whistle. So this is how it's gonna go. Each person has 90 seconds to answer and talk. The other person who's not talking is only responsible for active listening. Really paying attention. There's gonna be a lot going on, but your job is not to listen to the conversation next to you, or, oh my God, this is awkward, what did Jesse make us do? But truly, if I'm paired with V and the first question goes off, truly try to lock in. It's only 90 seconds. Then you're gonna hear me go switch or do something, and then Jimena's gonna go for 90 seconds. Then I'm gonna say move. So I'll say switch, and then I'll say move. When I move, all the odd number people are not gonna move at all. Only the even number people are gonna move one down. That's it. So you will just swing around and come and talk to me. Okay, there's 6 questions, so the last 2 questions, you will be talking to the same people twice. Okay?
Nice.
So when I say go, you're only going to read the first question, and then after that, 90 seconds will begin. Okay? So, ready, go!
Share your most embarrassing moment in a game. Oh my god, for sure. Okay, last year I got to we were losing our dad. Someone got 2 shots as we're in white shorts and
She's like, alright, which one's like,
Oh my god.
probably that one or like
I think like I was like the last one was like
Oh my gosh.
But definitely I found out how long this is my third time. All football players are all I had to go.
I don't know. If there's anything.
I changed and stuff, but it was like, so yeah. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I don't know. I haven't done anything like stupid embarrassing. Like, if it's embarrassing, then I just like.
And switch!
Okay.
In a game.
So it was like an AA game. I think.
In history.
Like for me, it's even embarrassing.
Okay, I think in high school.
Yeah.
I don't know what game it
What I
was.
was thinking.
But
For some reason,
I
you were
think
pressing,
Whenever
and for
it's
some reason,
like,
the R
I'm
baskets.
just
I don't know.
gonna
Like,
go
oh,
basket.
or
I think it was like something like no, okay, no.
I know my favorite thing too.
I know, I think I like airball and all I airballed a free throw, and I was like, okay, I can never do that again. Yeah, like that's like always sticking in my mind now, like just like a I was super nervous. I was like so tight. So I went to like 5 minutes. And then all of one of my coaches.
Move! Switch your date! Switch your date! And go to the next question. And go!
Okay.
Describe what makes you a great team player.
Feel better.
Describe what makes you a great team player. I'm gonna say describe me as a team player.
Speak your truth, Keely. 31
acted bad in the end.
I don't know. It makes me feel try and get over it.
Yeah, like people. I feel like I start like my. I don't know. I guess it just like defensive you can really
And switch!
Yes, so I always like to be on fun and not like that.
Yes, some good
And I'll always like pass people the ball, like that's my first like mindset to do is like set other people up. And like just like
And switch dates! And move! Amanda, you're up! Switch questions and go.
Share a need of improvement that you want your communication to be on.
Look at this.
I just said that.
I would say my tone.
Yeah. So like, I would say that, and I was like, there's like a language barrier. Like even if I want to communicate something, I'm like, I want to say something, I say it, and people are like, oh, it's so frustrating. I'm like, no, like, you know, like just go with it. So that's like, yeah, communication like fast and so like, tell people what to do and everything. That changes.
Yeah, exactly. Straightforward, but definitely still working on it. So. Yeah.
And switch.
Not taking everything like so not internalizing.
Sometimes get out of my own head because a lot of times when I get like frustrated, I just sort of like shut down, and then I'm like very like blinders on kind of thing. So and just like not try to let like what I'm doing like affect other people. So probably that's the best.
And so even where you at myself.
Do not go inward when I'm sharing.
It's like not the
And like working on it.
But I feel like
So
in this environment, like, you know, people could get competitive, get frustrated and try and but you need to get out of your
but yeah, I think that's overall helped me get through it and the team. I feel like figure that out.
And move. Switch dates. Switch dates. Next question. And go.
How has your communication changed? Sorry, since the beginning of freshman year. Short while.
Freshman year, I did
So I feel like now,
practice. So I think it changed a lot.
but
I still remember I used to come in my door freshman year.
well, this first the language thing, I'm a little bit better at English now. Like not like way better. So like
I'm also just like better like as a professional. Being better at responding to things.
First one, she's like very awareness of how important communication is now, like paying more attention to it. So yeah, talking to more, but like obviously keeping myself change, but like I care yeah. So like I care more about like what I say, how I say things, and like I think I communicate more overall. Like so like
And switch.
I freshman year, so like super
gotten
I think I've learned how to like deal with different types of people and like work with people that don't have as many like similarities to me.
Not like louder, but like I'm getting really
and also how to communicate with myself because I was like very, I think I'm like getting kind of better
like for example,
I feel like very negative when I'm being especially when I miss a shot and stuff like that. So I think I'm like learning how to deal with that.
like I really
don't
want to just
really
go
need to,
on,
but like
So yeah, I think you're getting good stuff as well.
class. Sometimes you have to
Communicate with different people
prioritize
because
and
people have to relate to.
but you if you're prioritizing, you need to communicate that to the professor, like, sorry professor, basketball, and still make them feel like they're important.
And move. Switch dates. Switch dates.
It's not like you're choosing.
Switch dates. Okay, switch questions. Almost done. And go.
How do you think others perceive your communication style?
Other procedures.
yeah, I wouldn't think that they perceive it as positive, but like I don't know, like I've been talking in the last 4 questions about like language, so he was saying like I always sometimes like kind of scared about people not understanding me sometimes. Have big accent. Always takes it. Not so much. No, barely. Okay, but still, like sometimes I feel like there's like I don't know how to say it, but like I wanna like think that like it's not everything verbal as you said, so like verbally wise, like non-verbally wise, and like I would think that it's like positive, and I'm like working on it because you're in the court, and like things are going on super fast, and like sometimes I don't even realize. But like, do you remember this conversation we had once that I was just like yelling at people all the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah, that was
like I'm trying like to improve it.
No, yeah.
I think
that was
when
my communication style. Well,
I think sometimes like
so
like that's a big part because a lot of times
I hope
when I like
personally,
I can be very like yeah, right? But then when I'm like struggling,
I think
I get really quiet and I a lot of people feel that.
And I hope that makes sense.
Sometimes
Yeah,
I feel like
and I hope I think I'm moody.
Like, it's good.
Yeah, sometimes they don't want to but like it's more just because I'm just like.
So how would you want to communicate like positive things?
And woo, quick dates. Last question, and go.
Okay.
What do you
communication like that next year?
I would speak directly, open communication.
I think right now we've been like
like being more direct with what their intentions are, and like if they're being aggressive, hopefully like just like if it's like direct, talking to each other, and like we know their intentions, like we know
we're learning like not everyone's
There's still needs
behind some of
there's
these
like
people talk to people, you can try to say it a little more so that you don't have to be worrying about if someone's going to share what you say, what you feel
and like I was like saying it,
And then still like I don't know,
build up with a lot. It's like kind of like keeping trust there and like having to without like deceiving.
not even more open about it, like like out of the court,
Just to being able to figure out.
And switch.
Okay, that's like what I think.
yeah.
Next season, I hope we'll all get to like learn how each other like respond to certain things.
I hope like personally I don't really know like otherwise I'm trying to think of like
Learn how to like
We should all learn how each of us respond to certain communication styles.
Like even like
help us.
communicating with like
And I agree with the
I don't really like stubborn and like I don't like to like
where we're all just a little bit more. And yeah, mostly just learning
just,
about
like,
each other to like learn how to more effectively communicate with each other. Especially that's it's gonna be weird not being young and stuff. It's so weird, but yeah, it's like a kind of like high pressure situations, highly effectively. Yeah, I reached that point across all of them. Yes, let's ask her what's together.
And time. Good job. Bring it on back.
Sorry.
All my little babies. I was little. All of y'all looking love and done dated everybody, right?
Love that. That was so fun.
Summertime coming.
Oh.
Love is in the air. That was awesome. I walked around, everyone was engaged, everyone was locked in. The questions shocked everyone. It was like, oh God. But you guys did the only rule that I asked was to like be present and be authentic and just let this moment be for what it is. The next moment is the next moment. This moment is this moment. And if this moment can change anything for the future, then let it. You know, we can't speak for tomorrow when you guys leave here. So hopefully that activity, even though it was fun, it had a purpose, you know, like when else were you gonna ask someone, you know, how has your communication changed since high school? You know, no one's gonna ask that at Dirt Road Cowboy when Ellie got a 25-page paper and, you know, somebody else got something else going on. So creating an opportunity to actually like get to know, you know what I mean? And if that's the piece that's missing from championships and hanging banners or coming in second next season, then that's the part that we should put as a priority. What's funny is research has actually shown that you don't even have to go in the gym and get any more shots to improve individual and team performance. Research has shown, like over and over again, that the team who communicates the best can outperform another team who's more talented and more skilled. So it's almost like there's such a heavy burden on like getting fit and being faster and stronger and not missing a shot. But in the off time, these are the little things that can also help propel performance. And that's the whole idea behind being mentally tough and choosing this as a skill when it's tough, because that's the whole point. It's to resist, to manage, and overcome. Man, I got in an argument with Dougie. I have a choice now. Am I going to choose to be mentally tough, which is a choice to choose communication and maybe address it by minding my nonverbals, by minding my verbals? It's not an issue of what I got to say. What I got to say is going to be tough anyway. I'm about to express myself about maybe something she did. That's already just awkward and uncomfortable. No one wants to have that. But if I'm minding all the other things and I'm checking off boxes, then maybe it doesn't have to be a big deal. It could just be that moment and then move on. So, great job. Great activity. You guys all did amazing, and you guys looked more engaged. So I'm hoping that that definitely resonates moving into the summer and next season. With that, I want to take just a couple of seconds, maybe about a minute or so, to just reflect on that. A lot was said, a lot of questions were asked. I've said a lot, you guys have shared a lot. So, in an effort to give each other space, I will kindly ask to either close your eyes or just look down, whatever you feel comfortable with. And we're just gonna have like a moment of silence, if you will, like to reflect on this particular question. Think about the questions that were asked during the activity and reflect on what others have shared. When you're ready, open your eyes. Awesome. So, research has also shown, did I tell you guys I do research? my real job right now is research. Research has also shown that learning happens more in reflection than in the actual moment that you're being taught something. So, if I'm teaching you a new math equation, we're all intellectuals. We can understand the words that I just spoke, but it's only when you go back, review, reflect, study, what did that person say? How do I, carry the R, carry the 2? You know what I mean? When it really sinks in. Not when you have that first initial intellectual understanding, but when you have that more deepened understanding. That happens per research in reflection. So, not necessarily being past oriented, we want to be present and grounded and aware. But if we have something happen to us that we don't always fully understand, then it might be a moment and a time to just take 90 seconds or a minute or two just to reflect on what was said, what happened, so that you can learn about yourself and also maybe the other person's point of view too. And then in reflection, you can be more sound of how to move forward in that relationship with maybe what happened or didn't happen. It doesn't always have to be bad. It could be good. If I bond with you, what do? We reflect. Man, that was an awesome time. Like, I had a blast with so-and-so, and you reflect on it. Same when things are not necessarily, perfect, I guess, So as a wrap up, we're just gonna have an open discussion and a debrief about the activity, the things you shared, the things I shared, even your reflection if you wanna share the things you thought about. And I first wanna ask, how did you feel during the activity? And really, I know I'm posing the question, but we can all just talk to each other. I tried to create a circle, so it wasn't like me in the front, Yeah.
I think I felt like a little uncomfortable in the beginning because also the 90 seconds you're trying to like talk the whole time. But I think like eventually it was easier to like talk about the questions that were being asked.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I also think it was like a challenge to like stay present right here when there's people next to you talking and you know those people and something that you can like hear what they're saying.
Yes.
And you're like, nope, stay here. And then you're like, nope, stay here. So I thought that was kind of interesting that our brains can like focus in on one person when there's so many things going on.
I love that you said that because that was almost what I prefaced in the beginning. I was like, I know we're gonna want to all be nosy because it's human, and we know we might be trying to listen to what that person has to say. Because 3 years ago they said this, and I want to make sure they're saying the right thing. But you want to make sure that you're like in that moment with that person, building that interpersonal connection. Because you might need them on the court. You might need them to be aware of when you're gonna pass them the ball, or that connection before the game starts, or in practice, or for whatever else you guys may be doing that specifically correlates with performance. So I love that you said that because distraction is huge. We're not grounded, and it's not a you thing. It's all of us. We're just not here and present when someone's talking. We're everywhere else, with everyone else. We're thinking about that last text message somebody sent us, and Coach Bell's talking to us. And we're not that interested maybe in that because we're interested in what somebody just texted, and we're just not here, So I love that you said that. How else did some other people feel? Let me just let him out real quick. So all stressed. How else does some others feel about the activity?
It was like pretty interesting just because like some of those questions, like while some of them weren't that deep or some of while others were, like I think you still ended up learning a lot about the other person. Like you definitely got to like learn more about who they are, like why they said the things they did, and help them explain a couple things, like if you didn't already know it about them.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was very helpful.
That's awesome.
I like that there's time for both people to answer. Sometimes like the other person brought up points that you didn't think of, or you could see like where someone was coming from in a different way, I guess.
Perspective, right? And I think like that's also excellent. I love that you brought that up because I'm just thinking about, like I said, what I said earlier, like everyone's coming from a different part of the world, maybe a different state, maybe a different socioeconomic status, a different background, a different culture, a different way to approach people. Some people look down when we talk to our parents, some people look directly at them, some people curse at their parents, some people don't, some people are, have their parents in their life, some people are not as, and we all have these different dynamics, and yet perspective is what comes into play when we're having these conversations, which I think one of the questions I talked about too is like, a need of improvement that we want each other to be patient with. because I think what happens is like our expectations of each other to be perfect are so high, and so-and-so just talked to me like this, and who does that person think they are? And no they didn't. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, well, we're human beings at the end of the day. Some of us are sleep deprived for weeks on end, depending on the classes we take. Some people can afford food, some people can't. We're trying to just wing it sometimes. And then everyone expects me to be this happy-go-lucky person on my period, you know, and just have this tone and have these perfect nonverbals. No, ma'am. It's not gonna happen that way. And then depending on your background and where you come from and how you approach life and how you see things, that perspective can really look different. And so shout out to you and kudos for bringing up that point, because sometimes just listening can help you see like, oh, I never thought to think of it like that because I come from this and this and this and this, good or bad, you know? So another question I have here for us is, how effective do you feel this activity was for building a better bond through communication? Yeah.
I think just practicing communication like that, kind of deliberately, and like a intentional environment is just good in any sense of just parsing communication or practicing lessons.
Absolutely. How about some of you? He meant on the big process.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think it was like good, just like it was nice being listened to, like just a person is sitting in front of you and having to listen to everything you're saying, and as a practice, having to do that yourself, listening, because I know myself, like in a conversation, I wouldn't like respond all the time, but like I don't know, just like having to actually listen for 90 seconds, not responding. It was hard, but it was good. So like forcing myself to pay attention to everything and like not try to kind of like resonate with them or relate, just like listening, just listening. I don't know.
No, that's great. And like, what do you think is the biggest reason why we cut people off? Because I do it too. Like you'll make a good point, and I'll be like, yeah, girl, and then it's all about me. And it's kind of like, dang, I didn't really let that person finish, and I was interested, but maybe I was feeling a little insecure, and I had to like chime in. Like, where do you think that comes from? I don't know. I'm actually asking you guys, but like, why do we do that?
I think a little bit it's just like human nature. While we don't want to do it, sometimes, and while we want to give them a spotlight, and it's like you don't do it intentionally necessarily. I think it's just like a lot of human nature. So, but that's definitely like a skill you can practice, and just letting them finish and just focus on listening.
I feel like sometimes that's me trying to actively listen. It's like trying to, I don't know, to show them verbally that you're still engaged with what they're saying.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. At least for me, you know, I want to show them that I care about what they're saying, but at the same time, I'm not letting them like complete the thought, you know, and maybe that was the thing I really needed to hear and just be present on. That's really good. And then the last question I have is, what is one thing that you learned or remembered from today, all of today, about communication that you genuinely feel inside, you know what, that was a good takeaway, and I think I'm gonna really try to make that a lifestyle. One, oh gosh. We in there.
You picked it up like a wow.
We got a few more minutes. Okay, we'll get there. 2 more minutes, promise. Scout's honor. That you can really say, you know what, I like what Jesse said, or I liked what my teammate said, or I like what I heard, or I like that question, you know, for performance reasons, for athletic reasons, I really want to take this away. So this is the only question that I would love just to hear a little bit from everyone. As a personal commitment to self, Ellie saying it out loud doesn't mean now the next person needs to go and be like, you said this at, you know, Jesse's house, why ain't you acting like that? You know, she's saying it out loud in vulnerability because that's a commitment she's going to work on for herself. And whether she masters that or not, that's her business. All we're here to do is to see her, support her in that vision. And that's the team cohesion that, you know, will bring us together. It's not necessarily tearing people down when people don't live up, but when we're not always who we need to be, we're like, you know what, how can I help you with that? Because you already got vulnerable and told me you're working on this. And you know, yeah, it's annoying to me and you're bothering me, but at the same time, that's your journey and I want to lift you up in that. So if we're all on a quest for better communication and we've all to a degree acknowledged that through research and in practice it feels good to communicate, then I want to hear from each of you. What's one thing that you might have heard or remembered today that you think for yourself you can kind of commit to bring into next season for yourself? And if you do it for yourself, it will help the larger group. Yeah.
I think I need to commit to getting to know like everyone on the team and how they respond, like what they respond well to, like how I should better communicate with them so they respond effectively, because I'm like everyone responds differently. So I think like even with tone and body language, like what you were talking about, I think with everyone else I need to find how they best react, and remember that so we can all like effectively communicate better.
Yeah, with that, I think Georgia said, is it respectively assertive, is I think the point you made? And I thought that, I don't know, I just think that when you say respectively, it's like knowing every person and how they respond, and like personally like trying to learn each and every one of you guys so that I can respond and like give you guys, you know, my opinions, but in the way that you guys would respond to it. So I really like that point.
That's awesome.
Also knowing like what other people are like not struggling with but like working on. For example, the question about like how like what do you think you should improve and do you want your teammates to be patient with? Like for example, like we all know like Daggy sometimes doesn't talk to herself in the best way. Like she's like hard on herself sometimes, and we're like, yeah, Dag, like if you're asked to your non-verbals, like everyone like we've heard all before like they should be better on the court, but like she's actually working on it. So like she needs support and she needs like I don't know, for us to be there for her to help her, and that with everyone else. And I feel like we all need to know where we all are struggling in so we can help each other out with that.
So I heard you say that you are committing to supporting through, I lost it. So your commitment.
My commitment is like to support my teammates
Okay.
in where they like with what they're working on, because like they're struggling with.
Okay. And how can you do that via communication?
Asking them where they need support with and how do they need that support. Like pretty much I just don't know, like I didn't know Daggy was like trying to improve in that, and that's all communication.
I see what you mean. So being the type of person that at least is a resource,
Yeah.
but instead of staying silent, actually asking like, hey, where can I be a resource for you? Got it. Perfect. Just want to make sure I understood.
I think for me, just being more like open and vocal, like my personality is naturally just a little bit more like reserved, and so I understand where like it comes across as like not caring or like being absent when I like don't say anything. So trying to like put myself out there more, and like when someone does something well, like sharing that, and when I know something, like someone did something wrong, like respectfully like helping them fix it. Yeah, and especially like with being an upperclassman, coming to be an upperclassman, and like having a whole new group of freshmen coming in, like it's selfish if you don't share like the knowledge that you've gotten from other people. So
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
I think mine, when you talked about at the end, like cutting people off, like sometimes I just get so excited like, I relate to something, I'm like, yeah, me too, like, and I'm not trying to like be rude, but like it's rude. So I work on that.
Okay. So active listening?
Yes.
Okay. Did I miss?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no. I think for me the same thing about like being reserved and just like a lot of times, like comes off not how I want it to. And also just like when I do get like frustrated to not like have like negative self-talk and like let that affect my body language. I know that like gives off a lot. And so, and especially like being an upperclassman, like I want to make sure that I'm like, you know, leading or like trying to lead others well. So yeah.
Did I catch everyone? Asha?
Yeah, kind of just a little bit of what everyone said, but probably just understanding where people are, not necessarily like in their lives, but like kind of what they've been going through or anything. So just so I'm not so quick to like make judgments about why they did the things they did. You're kind of getting a better understanding of like why they did what they did and like how I can help them rather than like make quick judgments and kind of get frustrated with them instead of like being on their side and getting like helping them instead.
That's awesome. Thank you. I love everything you guys shared. So as a final quote, well, first a personal quote, and then I wrote one down here for y'all, and I'll just text it in the group chat later so it can be like a good reminder. And if anyone wants this, I can like email it to you. It doesn't have anything personal on it, just what we did today, if you guys wanted to continue to reflect. But I love what each of one of you guys said, because it wasn't a commitment to each other. That's not what that was. It was just a commitment to yourself. Because those who can lead themselves well can then lead others. So it doesn't matter if I appoint you a leader or appoint you a leader, you need to just lead yourself. Because those who will follow will follow. You can't make people follow. People follow what's attractive. And what's attractive is leading yourself. So that's why I said when we leave here today, and I'll just say this, you know, the things that we shared just now, don't hold each other to that necessarily. Not to the degree where you're looking and waiting to see if they're gonna do what they said. You know what I mean? It's just respecting the fact that, okay, Anna shared this, V shared that, Ellie shared this, and I respect them because they were vulnerable to recognize something that maybe they wouldn't have shared otherwise, and I was in the same space, opportunity to hear that, and I honor her for that. Because I know that she's committing to herself for that. And if she does a great job, it's only gonna help our performance, and we're here to hang a banner. We're here to win. And if communication research-wise tells us that communication can help do that, then I am in support of the commitment that person made to themselves. Okay? So, as a final quote, which I'll put in the text, no matter what job you have in life, your success will be determined by 5%. By your academic credentials, 15%. Real encouraging, right? By your professional experiences, oh wait, hold on, let me just start again. I missed my commas. No matter what job you have in life, your success will be determined 5% by your academic credentials, there we go, 15% by your professional experience, and 80% by your communication skills. So when you think about being in the Ivy League, when you think about all the homework you have, it's only going to be 5% academic on your resume. That someone's going to be like, this is a valuable hire. 15% when you're networking in your professions, that this is a valuable skilled person. But 80% is communication. Your first impression, your tone, your body language. All of those things. So that's the final quote. So I want to thank you guys for waking up early, for being here, and for sharing space. And that's all I got for y'all today.
Thank you.